So what I wanted to do tonight is I got a letter or an email from a person, and they've given me permission to read it. Now I'm going to leave out the name and the locations, but this is a perfect example. If you had to say, give me an example of what the emails you're getting about fear, this is it. So I wanted to read it, and then I wanted to address it. This may be a two-part video because I'm going to deal with the aspects of fear with practical solutions and spiritual solutions. And so that way both sides, those who are not religious or subscribe to any faith-based solutions, will have the practical side, and those who do have faith and do practice spiritual things, then you'll have that side of it, or you can use both. And I've used both, and of course I'm a Christian, and so my worldview means I'm going to come at this subject, like all subjects, from the Christian faith point of view. So immediately I can tell you that when I deal with fear through my faith and through prayer and through getting strength from my faith and from God. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let me read this email. Dear Scott, I follow you and Steve pretty closely. I appreciate your honest take on this subject. I live in blank blank in a pretty heavily populated area and have had two experiences here, both very scary. I love being outdoors every morning. To me, it's God's church, so I am very comforted in the woods with my dogs. I was walking around our neighborhood one afternoon for exercise, trying to burn some extra calories, when I noticed on the road this tiny snapping turtle. I thought it was dead. I picked him up and took him home, put him in some water put him in some water to find he was only dehydrated. I was surprised how lively he got. I am an animal lover and felt he deserved a chance at life, and so my husband and I took him just a short distance from our neighborhood. In fact, right over the hill is the blank river that runs through our town. We walked some distance into some heavy wooded area, and my husband waited part of the way up the hill while I walked the turtle down to the bank. Well, two things happened right away as I bent down to release the turtle. A deer exploded out of the underbrush, and as I reached and looked up, a giant rock came sailing over my head. It went in a high arc over my head and landed in the middle of this river, making a huge splash. It scared me and my husband. It scared me, and my husband yelled, "What was that?" I told him, "I don't know, but it's time to go." No human could have thrown a rock that big that far. My second encounter happened just 2 years ago. Due to the pandemic, a lot of places I like to walk were getting crowded, so I was looking to walk somewhere else. So I went to a local trail near what is called the Blank River. It's across from a local very big high school. It's very heavily wooded. Sorry, there's not a lot of punctuation. I had been there before and gotten the creeps, so hadn't been there in a while. So many dogs. Some of my dogs, and I got my dogs and went there and had done the whole loop trail. I was nervous again there and was looking forward to going on out. When I got to the bottom of the loop, all of a sudden I had this overwhelming fear just take over me. I looked all around me and saw nothing. I started sweating, and all of a sudden I heard this voice in my head that said, "Don't come back." It was very firm voice, it was a very firm voice too. I literally hightailed it out of there. seemed like the longest walk back to my car. I was practically hyperventilating and shaking when I got there, and I felt I was like I was going to die. I am not scared in the woods, not psychotic, so I just couldn't explain this until I saw this on your channel when it happened to you on camera. I relived it. I haven't been back there since. I always thought these creatures existed only in the mountains and more secluded areas, but now I know that's wrong. I am having such a hard time getting over this. How do you get over the fear? Being outdoors in the mornings is an important tool for me dealing with stress, and now I find I can't get the same enjoyment and peace I used to. It's just not the same. I feel like I have been robbed. I don't have anyone to walk with. Excuse me. I don't have anyone I don't have anyone to walk with other than my dogs, and I'm not boy, I'm having trouble, sorry. I don't have anyone to walk with other than my dogs, and I'm just not willing to give it up. Just can't relax. Thanks, blank. And I apologize if I butchered that a little bit, but this is kind of the typical letter, and this lady, didn't even have a sighting. It was just, rocks being thrown, and then the mind speak of don't come back. And she asked a question that many ask, and that's, how do I deal with this? How do I get over this fear? Now, from a practical standpoint, I went out and faced my fear. I had a dogman encounter, and actually had one where the dogman came up behind me and I didn't see it. Came home, was really shocked when I saw, reviewed the video, because, I wasn't aware it was back there. And then, a couple weeks later, went back into the same area and had an eye-to-eye sighting. In other words, we made eye contact, and I felt very threatened. I felt like it could attack me at any moment. And I was fortunate to get out of the area. And it really shook me. And I was scared to go back into the woods. I would, for a few days, I was just like, I'm just quitting everything, and not going to, hunt, fish, do it, anything, because of what I'd witnessed. But after a couple days, and I started, feeling better, time heals all wounds, and then I just knew, it was like a gut feeling. I had to face that fear. I had to go back into that area and I faced that fear. I just couldn't, I couldn't go on. I couldn't, live with myself if I didn't do that. It was very important that I face this down. And so for me, that's the way I practically handled this deal. And you can ask my good friend David Pilates. I actually called him on the phone because I couldn't get anybody to come pick me up. I'd gone into this area and I had this experience, and I couldn't get a hold of my then wife or anybody, and so because I'd been dropped off, and I called him, and he can vouch for the fact that I was scared to death. I was mortified, and I told him if I don't call him back in about 15 or 20 minutes, because I was trying to get out of the woods, I said, you need to call 911, and gave him the location because I'm dead. And so it was that serious. And but I had to face that fear. From the practical side, one of the first things I would do, and my recommendation, is face the fear. Now, I know sometimes that's difficult for many of us, but I think it's an essential part of getting over anything. Now, let me say that I'm not a trained doctor, I'm not a psychologist, so this advice is worth what you paid for it. But I think facing the fear is very crucial. And I would recommend taking someone with you. Now, I know in this lady's case, she only had her dogs to go with her, which is actually a good thing. Dogs are very good to take with you camping and in the woods, because they have that sixth sense sometimes, and that ability to smell and hear what we can't, and can warn us of danger way before it comes at us. So if you're in a situation where you can't go with someone else, then I would recommend that you have an animal with you. But like in this example I'm giving, I took someone back with me, and I went armed because we were in the woods, and this person agreed to go with me, and we went back in heavily armed. But it was very therapeutic. It was good for me to go back to the exact area. And number one, I knew what I'd seen, and I had video of it, but there was evidence. I mean, there was scratches on the side of the tree, and you could see the claw marks where this thing had dug into the tree. And so actually being able to go in there with someone else, say, this is what I saw and this is where it was, and then when we go to the tree it was on, you could actually see the damage done to the tree and the claw marks and where it had grabbed onto the tree, and the person was kind of like, wow, not that they didn't believe me, but when you can go back and do that. And the same thing in many situations where you can take someone back and you can say, this is where this happened. If you can kind of relive it like that in a positive way, and reinforce it in your mind, number one, that it really happened and you're not crazy. And number two, putting closure to it. This is where it happened, and it happened here, and I'm here again, and there's nothing here. It's not going to happen every time. And sometimes you have to work your way into it and take baby steps. Go to places that are totally different than where you had the encounter or where you had any of these experiences. And that will sometimes help as well. And I think that's important. Some people want to go back and face the fear and go back to the same spot, and that's good. Or if you love to walk, and you went to this area and had this bad experience, go to another area and walk, and maybe just take small steps, whether it's hiking or walking or hunting. Take baby steps. Go until you feel uncomfortable and then leave. Go and hike, but instead of doing a full hike, do 30 minutes and then come back out. Gradually work up. And like I said, you should always go with a partner, and if you can't go with a partner, go with an animal. And if you're going in the woods, in places where you're able to carry a firearm and you're comfortable and trained with a firearm, I suggest you take a firearm. Another thing that helps you, or helped me, overcome the fear was the realization that these things are real, and putting it in the context of they're not some boogeyman. It's not, why they can be monsters because of their size and what they are. It's very similar to having an experience with a bear or a mountain lion. But the difference is, they're out there, and they're real, and they exist. And so it's putting the Sasquatch and like cryptids in the reality box. In other words, get them out of the scary boogeyman box, get them into the reality box. There's bear, there's mountain lions, there's wild hogs, and there's Sasquatch. And you're in your mind, you're aware they all exist. In your mind, you are aware you could encounter any one of them. It may be rare, but it could happen, and if it happens, then you're prepared. You're mentally prepared. You know what you need to do. Everybody that is in mountain lion country or in bear country, like here we have black bears and we have some mountain lions, but it's mostly, hang on, we gotta let the idiot go by. So in this area we have black bears, wild hogs. In fact, the wild hogs are more dangerous than the black bears, and we do have some mountain lions. The mountain lions are on their way back, but they're they're rare. But when you see a bear, and you can study what you need to do. Where you don't run, you stand your ground, Of course, if you're going with two people, I've never seen a black bear. Every black bear I've ever encountered has run from me, except for one, and it was a young male, and I was alone, which I know breaks all the rules. I know, do as I say, not as I do, but I was alone, and he was sitting at he was where I was off trail, going up a creek, and he was digging in this old stump for termites. And he was, like I said, he was a young, probably a couple years old, probably just been, his mom had just run him off. And he, when I clapped my hands and hollered at him, he just kind of stared at me, sizing me up. So I got out my bear spray and I backed out and faced him, and I didn't turn and run, but I just slowly backed out, and then when I got a certain distance, I turned and just briskly walked away and got out of there. But every other time I've experienced black bears, it's either been with at least one or more people. Of course, they run immediately, and so. But you know what you're facing. You know they exist. Wild hogs the same way. You want to be prepared. You want to, if you see one, you definitely want to leave the area. And so it's the same thing with the Sasquatch. You know they exist. If you have an encounter with one, you want to kind of treat it like a bear encounter. You want to don't run. Calmly leave, back out, and go with at least one person or an animal. I'm here to tell you that if you go with more than one person, it's more sets of eyes. More sets of eyes mean that they're less likely to do anything. And so, one person, you could get some activity or an encounter. Two people, that's two sets of eyes. I always like to say that with the addition of each additional person, the odds of having any kind of encounter go down exponentially. So, 2, 3, you're not going to see anything with 3, trust me. And 4, it's not going to happen. And so, sometimes it's two people will have some vocals or something like that, but it's extremely rare to have something go on with 2 or more people in the woods or wherever. Sometimes in camping situations they'll come up to tents and stuff with 2 or more people, but it's in a situation where you're actually in the woods hiking, it's very seldom that you'll have anything. Not saying it's 100%, but most of the time. So go with another person. It's very important. It's just important from a safety standpoint. If even if there are not any Sasquatches in the area, it's so important to go with somebody. I mean, as I've gotten older, I don't go alone hardly ever, and if I go alone, I make sure I have a personal locator device and I'm armed, and people know where I'm going and when I'm expected back. But here on the practical side again, you want to focus on facing the fear, doing the activity, but going to a different location if you're not comfortable going back to the same location. Take someone with you. Go in small steps. If take a 30-minute walk, a 2-mile hike, and build up gradually. And it really comes down to you. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to have the confidence that you can do this. I know it's scary. Look, I've done it, but I had to. I just knew in my gut and my heart that I had to face this. I had to go back. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't face this fear. Now, I wasn't stupid about it, and I didn't go back by myself, and I didn't do something silly. But I went back well prepared with another person who went with me, and I checked the area out, and I faced that fear, and I was able to move on. I was able not to be afraid of the woods, not to be afraid to go hunting or fishing. If I'd have stayed in that cocoon, who knows? I get the fear. I was there. I really, like I said, for a few days, I just was, I was telling my wife I'm going to sell everything and take up tennis or something. I was just not going to go back out. But after a few days, it starts. The don't want to say 50 times because you don't know. But that feeling of wanting to be back outdoors starts coming back, and you want to get out in it, and then you have that struggle between the fear and the need and the want to be outdoors. Because I love the outdoors. I was raised out. My mom kicked my butt out of the house. When we were children, barefoot and go. And I was raised outdoors, playing outside, hunting, fishing, camping, and so that's just like the email I read. That's my place where I can de-stress and actually feel close to God and really enjoy myself. So I had to go back. I had to face that fear, and I had to overcome it. Okay, so this this one segment's going to take 2 days. A little bit more beard and a little bit more of the different t-shirt here. But let me kind of refresh and kind of go over some bullet points. And of course I don't write all this down and organize it. It's all in my pea brain. But to summarize, for practical methods of dealing with fear, I recommend that you, number one, if you can, go back to the place where you had the encounter, if you can, and take someone with you, always. Never go alone, and face that fear. If you're not able to do that, then that's fine. Some people can, some people can't. If you're not able to do that, then you at least need to get back, what I call get back in the saddle again. And so go a different place, someplace that's totally different, again with someone, a friend, and take it in small bites. Like I said, if you're a hiker, do a short hike. If you're walk, do a short walk, and just build up until you can push through and get over the fear. You've got to face the fear. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. Fear is a good thing, and it protects us, it helps us, it's part of that gut thing, the fight or flight. But you can't let it rule your life. You can't let it overtake you and control you. You have to learn to control it and use it to help you. Not let it control you, but you control it. Also, you need to find someone to talk to. I mean, that's very important. Talking to a friend, talking to someone you can trust about it. I know sometimes that can be difficult, but it's very therapeutic to talk about your experience. Also, another thing that I recommend is having a sketch done, a witness sketch. Again, putting this thing out of your mind and on a piece of paper where you can look at it, you can face it, you can say, that's what I saw. And it kind of makes it real to just not you, but everybody else. And it's something concrete you can hold on to. Because a lot of the fear is just the self-doubt, is the fear of people, belittling you and making fun of you. And that builds into the fear of going back out in the woods. It's all part of it. Well, what if I see one again? Then I have another crazy story. And so I think it's important to talk, to do those things like the witness sketches. Like I said, for me, it was extremely therapeutic to have the two Sasquatch I saw when I was a child drawn. So I think that's important also, and I'll have a link here to Sabella Irwin's site. She does she's volunteered to do the witness sketches, and she does a great job. So I kind of want to round out and finish up this the practical side of getting over the fear. And again, one other thing, of course, writing emails. Steve has got his ongoing thing that he's doing with reading the emails and the round table of knowledge, and that's a great thing. You can write David Pilates, you can write me, And if you want me to read it, tell me, and I'll read it. I don't. That's not my thing. But if it's an outlet and you can get to me, I'll definitely read them if you request it. Most of the emails I've been getting are just more, one-on-one. It's not really a thing where I read them. But if you want me to, just tell me, I'd like you to read this out, publicly, and I will. But my main focus, as you know, is trying to help, trying to give people advice and guidance, and get them in contact with people that can help, or give them, answer their questions and that sort of thing, and just making people aware that they exist, and how to deal with the different situations that arise. So I hope that's helped you, especially those of you that are dealing with fear on a daily basis and want to get back out and want to get going. I recommend those things. I also recommend, if you can find a good therapist, that you get involved with someone to talk to, professionally. I'm trying to get a network together of some people that I trust that are professional and licensed in these areas. And once I do, I'll make recommendations. But it's hard to find, as we all know, it's sure hard to find someone in the in the mental health services that is open-minded and will, not think you're, mentally ill, but actually counsel you, listen to you, and treat it seriously. PTSD is PTSD, whether it came from a car wreck, a war veteran, or an animal attack or Sasquatch encounter. It's real, and it happens, and people suffer from it. So, the whole ideal here, and my whole goal, is just to help people, and to help people learn and expand their knowledge. So, in part 2, I'm going to go over the how I deal with fear from a spiritual standpoint, and religious, however you want to say it, but I prefer spiritual, and because I dealt with fear both practically and spiritually, but I thought I'd split them up, and then we'll combine them, and I recommend that you do both, but I understand some people, they're not inclined to do that. So until next time, in part 2, I hope this has helped you. You guys be safe out there. A lot going on in the world. Be praying for each other, praying for our country. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye now. Alright, so we're still talking about fear, but earlier I talked about fear and how to face it on the practical side. And now I'm going to talk about fear and how to address it spiritually. As a Christian, I start every day with prayer. And anytime I do any activity, especially outdoor activity, whether it's hiking, hunting, fishing, camping, I always start the day with prayer and say a prayer before I actually go do the activity. And it's a very simple prayer, but it's a prayer of protection and guidance and wisdom. And that God will protect me, that if there's any supernatural or other things out there, that He'll protect me from those, and He'll protect me from natural predators, and give me wisdom and the ability to follow my gut, and just keep us safe. And I recommend that for anybody, if you're so inclined, that you should pray before you go or do just about anything. And there's nothing wrong with praying during the outing if something comes up. I'm always asking God for strength and wisdom and protection and help. So number one, that is my number one recommendation, that before you do any of these activities, you pray first, and pray for protection, pray for guidance and discernment. And so how I handled, especially like the dog man situation, where I went in after seeing the thing and on the back trail camera, and purposely went back in there and then had the eye-to-eye encounter, and that shook me and scared me. And I prayed for strength. I prayed, God is my protection. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I put my faith in God and trust Him to protect me. And it goes even further than that. God doesn't always promise 100% protection. Everybody says, "Oh, it's God." No, that's true. He does not. Just like He doesn't promise this world will be without, troubles and bad things are going to happen to good people. And it's kind of like the furnace where the king was going to toss in God's prophets that were going to obey God and not the king, and not bow down to Him and worship Him. And they proclaimed, God may not deliver us from the fire, O king, but He will deliver us from you. And it's the same way. God may not deliver us from something that's going to happen, whether it be an accident or an attack or whatever, but He will deliver us from this world. And I'm just, that's where I get my confidence. That's where I have my ability. I can only speak for myself. The reason I have confidence is not solely on anything I can do, but it's based on God and what He's done and what He's promised me. And I know that if anything happens to me and I was to die, I'm going to heaven. God's going to take care of me, and nothing's going to happen to me that God does not allow. So I don't care whether it's angels, nuclear bombs, aliens, Sasquatch. It does not matter. If it's not my time, it won't happen. I'm appointed once to die and then the judgment, and that time to die will not happen until it's God's time. And nothing's going to stop that. And so that's a hard concept for people that are not Christians or not familiar with faith and religion to kind of wrap their heads around. But that's the way I see the world. So when I go back out there and I pray for protection, I go out there knowing that, yes, I could get injured or hurt or even killed, but it'll be God's will and on His time. Now, I'm not going to do anything foolish, and I don't tempt or push anything. If I got a gut feeling I shouldn't go here or go there or do this or do that, I don't. And I follow those, those feelings that I get. So I'm not trying to be unwise, and I don't tempt fate. I don't go, screaming in the woods, with bacon grease slathered all over me trying to have a Sasquatch encounter. You don't tempt God, you don't push it. But within reason, you pray and you go with confidence, not in my abilities, but in faith that God's going to be true and faithful. That's how I personally, from the faith standpoint, handled the fear. And that's who I give it to. And sometimes it takes a few days. It took me a couple weeks to praying and thinking and meditating to get where I could go back out in the woods after the dogman encounter. But I knew I had to face the fears. I knew I had to get back out there. And I knew it was God's will. I mean, I could feel that. God led me into this research for a reason. And He's opened my eyes and taught me so much, both, in the Sasquatch side, but just about life and Him, the whole thing. And I don't want this to sound like some sort of Bible lesson, but it's a life lesson of those of us who have faith that God uses everything, and sometimes He takes us into areas that we would never go ourselves, just like in this case for me. And it's allowed me to minister and to help other people. And I never dreamed that's what it was all about, but now that I'm here, I can see where God protected me, where He led me. It was not an accident that I had the encounter. It was not the accident that I, got into the research. And though now I don't recommend people research and do what they did, God took me there to open my eyes and teach me things so I could tell others. I really believe that. And He protected me. I was definitely ignorant and had no idea what I was dealing with or what I was doing. And God taught me through that experience all these things. And so now that I'm on the back end of this, over 10 years later, I can look back and see where God's hand and how led me into it, and how He worked and how He protected me, and how I couldn't be fed all this information in 2 weeks. It just was not going to work. I had to be step by step, baby step by baby step by baby step, just a little bit at a time, get more information, get more knowledge until I'm here. And I'm telling you, there's no experts, and I'm still learning, and I'm still getting knowledge, and I'm hopefully helping people by imparting that knowledge to you. But that's the way it works when you get back and getting over the fear. It's little bites. It's you eat the elephant one bite at a time. So it may be gradual. It may, like I've said before, on the practical side, it's you go hunting, go for half a day. Definitely go with another individual. Go to an area that's different. If Steve says it, and I agree with it. If you get in there and you feel, he calls it pressure. I guess you could call it pressure. For me, it's a different feeling, but it's pressure. It's anxiety. It's just what it is. It's different for everybody. But when you feel that other presence, and I guess that's what I feel. I feel the presence. I mean, I can feel it, and sometimes it's even so distinct. I know what direction it's in. Not always, but sometimes. And that's kind of scary in itself, but that's kind of one of those things that when you've been affected by these things, sometimes you get that I don't know if it's an ability or curse, whatever you want to call it. And so then there's times that I get gut feelings that I just need to leave an area, and I leave. And so one of the practical things that I wanted to mention goes along with this. I always have backup plans. And you should always have a backup plan. Like if I'm going camping, I always have at least one alternate side I can go. You never know. You might get there and it's too crowded. There's a flood. There's a bear in the area. Trees have fallen. Whatever. Bad weather. So you have to go somewhere else. And it's the same thing with the Sasquatch. If I go hiking and I start to climb the mountain and I really feel the presence, and I know I should, no, this is wrong and I need to leave. Then I turn around and I'll leave and I'll go to another trail. And if it feels good, I pray and off I go. Enjoy my day. I don't let one area of this pressure or this feeling this presence, keep me from enjoying my day. So always have backup plans. Whether fishing, hunting, camping, walking. When you're trying to cope with the fear and get back into it, have backup plans. Don't just say, well, I'm going here, and if if something goes wrong or I don't feel comfortable here, we'll throw up my hands and we'll try, have a backup plan. And if you feel comfortable, I encourage you to go ahead and do it, because sometimes that's the best time, is when you've gone to an area, you felt the fear and the pressure, and you've backed out and you've gone somewhere else, and then there's no fear and pressure. And it's a healing, for me anyway. It's a healing mechanism. It allowed me to, no, it's not everywhere. They're not following. It's almost like it lets you know, oh, they're not everywhere, and they're not following you everywhere. And though it does seem that way sometimes, no, it's not true. There's not, they can't be everywhere at once. And so that's my experience and my advice from the spiritual side. It's all about God. It's all about prayer. It's all about my faith in Him, and I give it over to Him, and then I trust Him, and I just have the faith to know that whatever happens, happens, and it'll be God's will. That's how I approach it. So I hope this has helped you. This has been a weird posting, because it took me 3 or 4 days to get this together. I thought I was going to do 2 parts, but then I decided just to combine it into one. And each day the shirt changes and the beard gets a little longer. I need to get out in the woods, but it's going to be 17 degrees on Saturday, so we'll see. But think about these things. Like I said, I would always recommend a combination of the practical and the spiritual. Put them together. Use the common sense and the brain that God gave you to make a plan and execute it. Just don't go without a plan. Especially once you've had one of these experiences and you're dealing with the fear and you just don't know how you're going to go back in the woods. Make a plan. Don't let these things, these cryptids, whether it be dog man, Sasquatch, or anything else, rob you of the joy of God's creation. We just, we're not to live in fear. And I know, I understand it. People write me and they just don't look, I've looked a dog man in the eyes, a creature that's not supposed to exist, that I am more than confident could have ripped me to shreds. So I know what fear is. I've been there and I've done that. And I also know how to overcome the fear. And I overcame it through faith first, and then adding those practical things together, and then I just faced it. That's what I did. I faced it. And if that's one piece of advice I could give you, is you've got to have the courage to face the fear. And you must, in my opinion, through faith, you ask God to give you that courage. That's my recipe for success of overcoming the fear. It's, in my opinion, it's going to be difficult to do it on the practical side alone, but many people have that internal fortitude that they can push through and they can do it. I have no problem admitting, I rely on God, and it took me, to get over the fear and to get back into the woods and to face these things. It took His strength through me. It wasn't of me, it wasn't anything I did. I had to ask God and rely on Him, and rely on my faith in Him. Nothing that I did. But I know some individuals that are very strong and very determined, and they can push through. But if I had to, if you ask me, if you pin me down, it's persistence through faith and trust in God to face it, and do it smart. Don't just run out in the woods. Go with someone. Go armed. Take a tracking device, personal locator beacon with you. Whatever you're doing, make plans. Tell people where you're going, when you're going to go, and when you're coming back, and so they can expect you. Be prepared. I've done videos on what you should take with you. Be smart. God gave you a brain. Use it. So, but in the end, I think that everyone, to some degree or another, can face that fear and can push through it. Like I said, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. This is just my personal advice to you as those who are dealing with this fear. I watched one of Steve's videos today, and fear. It was the guy. It was fear. A encounter kept him from going hunting, and he just about completely gave up hunting. And so it's a real thing. It's a theme, no matter whether it's Dave or Steve or my emails or others. Fear, that's a constant thing. Fear. And we've got to push through that fear. We've got to get over that fear, and enjoy God's creation. So I hope this has been an encouragement to you. I hope there's been some advice. I know it's probably a repeat, but sometimes that's how you learn. You have to repeat, and the questions keep getting asked. So we're going to keep answering them, and it's the same theme: fear. So I'm saying faith, and confidence in God, and confidence in yourself, and face the fear. I hope that helps. You guys, I hope y'all get out in the woods or do whatever you enjoy doing soon. And just be careful out there, and I will talk to you soon.